is exhausting. And it can also fuel intense resentment. Our anger is just a reminder of the lack of self-love or the lack of self-care that we are giving to ourselves. Because underneath anger is just hurt. And underneath hurt is this ability that we feel like we can't explore, explain, or share our desires, that we have to sacrifice. We have to give up something. The one thing that I kept hearing over and over and over again from my elders in my family was motherhood is a sacrifice. We have to sacrifice. We have to sacrifice. Yes. But to what extent? To the point that we're completely burnt out? To the point that we are so exhausted? Why does it feel like we have to keep everything all together all the time? Hello, Brave Table fam. Welcome to another episode of The Brave Table. I'm your host, Dr. Neeta, and this is your oasis, your destination to be all things just a little bit more brave in your actions, in your life, and in your relationships. And today, if you are new, if this is the first time you're tuning in, I just want to say a very, very warm welcome. If you're watching this on YouTube or if you are just connecting with me on your casual drive or your walk today, this morning, wherever you are, welcome. And I am so excited to take you into a really special conversation. And before I do that, I really want to celebrate that we are officially in Aries season. And this is the time of this recording. We would be in the throes of what is now called the big eclipse that is happening in the northern part of the world, northern hemisphere, so in North America. And it's actually going to be coming over Austin. And this big eclipse is, it's starting to cause some big messages of healing in this eclipse. Well, if you are into astrology or not, I am definitely loving how people are making their way into Texas to watch the eclipse. And I think in general, what this means for us as we are getting into spring. And spring, this is the time of year where we are starting to declutter, where we are starting to really see the fruits of our labor, of our air quotes winter season, the time where we are most often wanting to go inward, the time where we are most often wanting to hide or hibernate. And this is a time of new beginnings. This is a time where we start to blossom. This is the time where we start to bloom in many different arenas and areas of our life. And also, for some, this can be a time of really building your confidence, but also at a very deeper level, being in attunement with what emotions we are still kind of suppressing. And so while we are in this big energy season of spring and blossoming and blooming, I also want to take a moment to honor the mamas who maybe are in postpartum, or perhaps whenever you're listening to this, you may be, or you may have stumbled across this because you are going through a season of postpartum depression, rage, emotions that you are not able to deal with, connect with. And that's really the theme of our episode today, is what are the big feelings behind postpartum rage, depression, and really in motherhood? And why does it feel like we have to keep everything all together all the time? Well, I'll tell you why. I mean, this is one of the reasons why that it's been normalized, and we have normalized as a society that moms aren't supposed to have big feelings. We're the ones that are supposed to be the cheery ones, the moms, the fun ones. But I don't know about you, but in all of the discussions that I've had growing up, I've seen overworked moms. I've seen moms who are on the verge of burnout. I've seen moms who are trying to do it all and can't. I've seen moms who really struggle, especially after their first child, and that too in the throes of motherhood, in the throes of that quote unquote fourth semester. So, the first 3 months of when a baby is born. Now, this is for you, even if you don't have any children, and as well as for those who maybe have children who are much older. How can we even support the new moms out there, the new moms that we see maybe in a mom's group or play date or in a meeting, even that to really lend a helping hand, maybe even a colleague to lend a helping hand or just an ear to actually say, hey, it's okay to not be okay. Because I think that there is this stigma that you're just supposed to be happy all the time because you're a new mom, because you were able to be lucky enough to birth this child. And there's so many stories that I write about in my book, That Sucked, Now What? And of course, if you go back a few seasons over, I do talk heavily around the weight that the postpartum journey is in my own specific journey. And I'll link that those particular shows in the show notes if you want to go deeper. But I didn't really have that support. And I didn't realize I was really in the throes of a deep depression after my son was born, and then even after my daughter. But with my son, it was like something just completely hit me. And it wasn't just depression. Um, so postpartum rage is also part of postpartum depression, but there was a lot of anger, a lot of feelings that I didn't know to deal with. I'd never experienced it before, or maybe those feelings were coming up, but I knew how to completely suppress them. I knew how to label those feelings as bad because there was never a moment where I grew up to fully experience or fully feel those feelings. So I would suppress them. I would completely bypass them. I would channel them and transmute them into something else instead of allowing my body to fully feel. And now, you know, fast forward a few years later, when I did have my toddler, when I did have Ari, boy, those meltdowns were big and they would trigger the craziest emotions in me. I was like, I want to fix, I want to control, I want to suppress his feelings. There was a need that I needed to say, shh, because I wasn't okay with the feelings that I was experiencing. And I noticed this now, with elders that we have in our house, or, when my in laws come, it really is so painful. And of course, nobody wants to hear a toddler crying. They're going to give them the cookie or the candy or the chocolate. But what if it's okay for them to feel? And what if it's also a red flag sign to give us permission to also feel? I mean, it's one of the reasons why I wrote the book, That Suck, Now What? And not only that, but to really have this be a go-to guide for any mother, that they're not alone, to really normalize the feelings of, yes, I'm feeling sad and it feels really icky, but I want to go just a deeper layer beneath that, because many times we just, in society, we just weren't allowed to have the space to really feel, because we're supposed to be the fun one. We're supposed to be the loving mom who maybe puts ourselves last, who is the martyr, who is the one that takes care of everybody else except for herself and at the expense of herself. But then again, you see the kids going to all of the after school activities and all of the things, and yet we then have these feelings of mom guilt, and that, oh gosh, God forbid I can actually do anything for myself because I need to pour every ounce onto my kids. Or maybe you're one of those who've gotten the projection from other moms because you are living your best life and you are saying, actually, I need to pour into me. I need to go to that yoga class. I need to actually go and do that thing that I want to do just because it gives me sanity and time back. And it is a full whirlwind. It's these emotions that come up when we are facing head on, basically a head on collision of the expectations of how we should be in motherhood. It's all of those things except the batshit crazy, except the one that is super emotional and utterly exhausted. There is a study that I came up across where basically people started to really go into, and this was from the Qualitative Health Journal, and I'll link it in the show notes. It's a study of women's anger after childbirth and how these researchers went into how and why mothers develop an intense anger after childbirth and the actions they take to manage their anger. I mean, is all anger a bad thing? I think it's bad because we've normalized mothers to just be and act one way. It's why there are memes out there of the crazy mom that yelled at her kids in the grocery store, or the mom that lost her shit at the movie theater. Can we normalize that, the mother's journey is filled with a lot of expectation, is filled with a lot of management and holding of other people's emotions, where then we don't have an outlet or even a person to vent to and yell at or release this pressure valve of shame, frustration, overwhelm, anxiety, and anger. And so then it becomes bottled up into rage. And I'll share just my own personal experience. I remember, in the very beginnings of, the first few weeks of having Ari, I was already having a hard time breastfeeding. We didn't really have quite the birth that I wanted, my amazing home birth. I mean, he came out when he had to, and we ended up being in a hospital on the other side of town. Shout out to Compton. He was born there. And it was completely unexpected, where we had to transfer and shift. And then we were also having trouble, breastfeeding. And of course, Ari was losing a lot of weight. He also had a couple of other things the doctors were concerned about. And you're feeling all of this and just the inadequacies. And also, my in laws were here for the first time in the US from India. So there was a lot of these internal pressures. And I think I was also really coming to terms with the fact that my own parents were there. They were, deceased many, many years prior to that. I lost them when I was 16 and 19. And my bonus mom, my aunt, and my uncle were the ones also there. So I had a lot of family over, but there was also this sense of grief. And it was a sense of grief that I couldn't really make out initially. And it was a lot of these unresolved emotions. And many times, these kind of sticky points come up to surface when there is something new that is happening in life. And case in point, baby is obviously really brand new. But we don't normalize. And I think it's only been in the last maybe few years that even a talk of depression, postpartum depression, is being normalized and even discussed. But what about the postpartum rage and anger? And to express and to experience all parts of ourselves that are feeling less than, that it's not just, the guilt of, oh my gosh, you did at the end of the day have a healthy pregnancy and a healthy and happy baby at the end of the day. Yes, at the end of the day. And the duality of holding both of those things, grieving, the birth that you didn't have, grieving the fact that, your own parents couldn't be there, while on the other hand, you have, you know, eight or four, two sets of grandparents who are there. It's the duality of both. And I think many times in motherhood, wherever you're at, even if you're, a brand new mother, or you are, a mama that is trying to figure out herself and maybe why she's having these big feelings in motherhood, because it is exhausting. So let's just acknowledge that motherhood is exhausting, and it's beautiful, and it's amazing, and it's the most joyful period of time. I mean, that's where there is the most beautiful paradoxes in the journey of motherhood. And it can also be intense burnout, and it can also fuel intense resentment, and it can also fuel isolation, and it can also fuel that you are now pouring into these kids, or even the idea that maybe you want to have more children but can't. And so there's all of these internal triggers, yet there is this lack of support, because at the end of the day, and I do care so much about the stay-at-home moms who they put so much pressure on themselves that because they aren't working, I should be doing X, Y, and Z, one, two, three, and or the people around them are putting that pressure on them. But most of the time, any of the stay-at-home mom that I know that I've come into conversations with and come across with, they are the ones that are the most excited that they get to give this gift to their kids. So are they really less than? No. It's probably one of the hardest jobs as well. And, to be able to honor that and revere that, whatever path anybody's taking. But I think at the end of the day is to really, if you are somebody that knows a new mom or sees a new mom, have these conversations to be able to ask, hey, love, how are you really doing? Like, I know you are so happy that your kid is healthy and happy, and maybe it took you a couple years to have him or her. How are you really doing? Because we can take out the expectation of what everyone else or what society or what others perceive as what we should be experiencing and feeling, and all of those happy vibes. And we can also talk about the grief of what your life was beforehand, the grief of that you are now, a part of yourself is now dying, and this new part of yourself is beginning to emerge, just like springtime, just like any other time of beginning new journeys, beginning new things, and the start of taking on a new shape, entering that role as a mom. There are going to be a complexity of feelings. There are going to be there is going to be this uncertainty, which would also trigger these big feelings, these big emotions of, am I doing this right? Am I inadequate? Am I supposed to be there for everybody? And I remember some of the things that I was just kind of going back and forth with was the fact that, okay, on the one hand, I want to be this good daughter for my in laws who've never been to the US. So I put on my good daughter hat, and I'm like, okay, I want to be able to plan out where they're going to go to because I didn't know how long it was going to take me to have this child. And so in my mind, while I should be focusing on my birth, I'm thinking, where can I get them to go visit? It was just the wildest thing. And we go back into these dynamics of, all right, am I doing enough? Should I be doing? Instead of me surrendering to this time in my life of, okay, I'm going to give birth and I should focus on me. And I know that so many of you resonate with this because I see your DMs, I hear your stories, and we've had these conversations, and it is exhausting. And then we give ourselves up, and then we judge our thoughts, and we judge how we respond, or we judge how we act because we haven't made it safe to experience those deep, dark, vulnerable shadow emotions and feelings. Because supposedly, as moms, we're not supposed to feel that. But let me tell you, we feel all of that. And my role for anybody listening to this, if you needed a reminder that these are all normal expressions of you, these are all normal feelings of you. And I wanted to pick our card today. I usually do this in the beginning, but now that if you are watching, these are my That Suck Now What affirmation cards. They're 52 affirmation cards. You could actually get them at thatsuckednowwhat.com. Ooh, oh, this is really good. Okay. I forgive those who have harmed me in the past. I choose to let go and release all past hurts. I am healing. And I think this is really for a beautiful reminder for even ourselves to forgive ourselves, because we are honestly our own biggest critics. And if anybody is listening to this right now that needs to really hear and heal from the overdoing, from this idea that I need to do this all on my own, from this idea that it's so hard to ask for help, from this idea that I need to be X, Y, and Z for my family because I am only, or I am a blank. Let's reframe that this week. Let's reframe that this month. Let's reframe that for truly understanding that our anger is just a reminder of the lack of self-love or the lack of self-care that we are giving to ourselves. Because underneath anger is just hurt. And underneath hurt is this ability that we feel like we can't explore or explain or share our own desires, and that we have to sacrifice. We have to give up something. I mean, the one thing that I kept hearing over and over and over again from my elders in my family was motherhood is a sacrifice. We have to sacrifice. We have to sacrifice. Yes. But to what extent? To the point that we're completely burnt out, to the point that we are so exhausted, we can't even be kind or nice to our spouses or the friends around us, or that we just isolate everyone around us because we are just running on empty, instead of actually raising your hand and saying, hey, 3 big words: I need help. I can't do this alone. And there's nobody that nobody's validation that I'm trying to get that will make me or make this situation or make this season in life any better, because I can prove that I can do this all on my own. Because guess what? You can't. You just can't. And I know that a lot of times this happens with a lot of go-getting mamas, overachieving mamas, or just women who perhaps, and there's no fault of your own, but maybe there is a little girl inside, a little child inside of you, that little girl that just needed to be told, you are enough. You are so worthy. You don't need to be pleasing other people. You don't need to be putting your needs last. You don't need to feel guilty for wanting that yoga class or that Pilates class or just going for a walk around your block. You can actually carve the time out for you. Because who needs and wants a mom who is all out of sorts? So my invitation, as you're listening to this, and maybe some of you who are like, wow, I got a different sense of motherhood today, and I'm not even a mom, and I don't know if I could do this. It's that season in life, whether you are a new mom, existing mom, or not a mom yet, you do have women in your life who are moms. Let's be gentle with them and ask them, how can I support? How can I support you? Can I take your kids out for an hour? Like, I've loved the moment when my brother, my kid brother, he's not a kid anymore, and he has now developed his own relationship with his niece and nephew, my kids. And that is the biggest joy, with all of the losses that we've had. That is the greatest and biggest joy that could give my heart the immense amount of just deep love and healing that I can see them have a relationship together outside of me. And so if you are in that boat that you can take the hands off of a mama in your circle, in your community, it really takes a village, and for those mamas who struggle with asking for help, for those mamas who want to, for whatever reason, prove their worth, or they struggle to really say, I need support. I guarantee you, if you actually lean on other people, I guarantee you, people will be there to support you 1000%. They will be like, yes, I will take the kids. I will take them to the park. I will do whatever you need so that you can go get an hour for yourself. So you can go and journal. So you can go and cook in peace. So you can go and just like dumb scroll for an hour. Whatever you need to do so that you can fill your cup, so that you can be able to sit with the big feelings and not judge them, not villainize them, not think that you are inferior because you can't keep it together, or you have this ideal in your mind because of your elders, because they supposedly had it perfect. Perfection is literally just the absolute fear of failure. And in motherhood, there's going to be a lot of mess. There's going to be a lot of chaos. We get to dance through it. We get to dance through those big feelings, through those big waves, through the bigness of some of the biggest transitions, and through some of the small moments of joy. So I just wanted to hopefully open and start this month of April with just honoring the mamas that have bloomed and had babies and maybe are going through the process, or maybe are also maybe they haven't had their babies yet, maybe they're growing one in their bellies or thinking about it, or maybe you are completely past that. Maybe you're growing something else and birthing a new project, a new you, a new chapter of yourself, a new dimension of who you are. But be gentle with yourself. Be gentle with your growth. Be gentle with the frustrations that come up, the overwhelm that comes up, the burnout that can come up when we are not in alignment with ourselves, when we are resisting or rejecting some of our big feelings, because those feelings are just flags. They're reminders. They're like, hey, pay attention to me. Hey, I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling angry because I feel like I can't share my own desires, or I feel like I am not able to request what my needs are effectively. So I hope this gives you the bravery to curiously ask yourself what you need this week, and who and how can other people support you to step in the best version of yourself that you can this week. Now, that is all I have to say. Feel free, if this resonated, to grab a copy of my book. Actually, for the month of April, we are giving away signed copies of That Sucked, Now What for free. That is correct. All you have to do is submit your screenshot of your 5-star review. And if you have already done a 5-star review in the past, then a screenshot of you subscribing, liking, following us on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. And when you've screenshotted those and you've either written us a review, go ahead and send it to support@globalgrit.co. That's support@globalgrit.co. And we will send you a free copy of the book. And this is only for folks who are in the US. But otherwise, you can go ahead and grab the That Sucked Now What cards on thatsuckednowwhat.com. And they come as a bundle, actually, and they're great for having these kinds of conversations, but also to align back with yourself. So thank you so, so much for tuning in this week. As always, I hope you stay a little bit more brave.
We oftentimes outsource our turn on to some hot dude or some girl or porn, but we actually hold all of this ability for ourselves. And psychedelics remind us that everything can be an access way to pleasure, or everything around us is erotic.